All right, welcome back, everyone. Really good NBA segment there, fellas. Now it is time to get into this. Is going to be two different topics. So we've got the Final Four we're going to hit on, and then we've got some NFL stuff, mainly regarding Colorado and their pro day. And then we'll definitely dip into the NFL draft as well a little bit there at the end. But starting off with the Final Four on Saturday, it was two really good games. The first one was Auburn versus Florida. Florida was trailing for most of that game, and they found a way to do it. They came back and got the win over Auburn. And then how about it? How about the University of Houston getting the win over Duke? I definitely want to talk about that last shot at the end for Cooper Flag, but Houston gets the win over Duke. So the national championship is set. You've got Houston and Florida on April 7th. So that is literally tomorrow. I thought they were going to give the teams a week, but they said nope. You got 24 hours to prep, or well, I guess 48. You got 48 hours to prep, and we'll see you on Monday. So it should be a good one. I'm excited to see how it goes. But I will give you guys the floor. So I watched Duke and Houston. I didn't get to watch Auburn and Florida. I was at work. So I will kind of sit out for that one, but then I'll jump back into the combo for Duke and Houston. But you guys go ahead.
Well, I'll say this: watched both games yesterday. Both exciting games. Both games compelling stories behind them. Right. Well, I'll start off with Florida first, along with Auburn. One of the things I thought when that game was getting started was look at Johnny Broom and see how he's playing, see how that elbow is, and see how his conditioning is. And if you looked at that game, Johnny Broom, he's Auburn's leading scorer and also SEC Player of the Year. So, and seeing him continue to grab his right elbow after that injury last weekend, I saw that he wasn't right between the ears. He wound up with 15-7, but it was probably his weakest 15-7 all year. He's a guy to kind of control that paint, especially on the offensive end. He wasn't able to do that because he's probably arm wise, he's probably about 80% on that elbow, and that did impact him because Florida's got two bigs that are really down there in that paint putting work in. So I felt that Florida wore them down in the second half and came away with the victory because of the fact they had healthier players, and also I think they hit big shots when it mattered in that second half. Because to your point, Auburn had the lead the first half, and Florida just kind of wore them down a little bit at a time. Very impressed with Florida. I did say at the beginning of March Madness, they were my team. I thought was gonna win if it wasn't Duke. So I think Florida's gonna take it home come Monday night, but we'll see what happens. Second piece on that is the obviously Duke and Houston, right? I didn't watch the whole game. I watched a good portion of the game. What I thought about the game was this. I said to someone, I said, Duke is going to make Houston look like Houston made Tennessee look the week before because Houston didn't have that guy scorer, right? They didn't have that, and I felt that they were going to get bogged down. But what I underestimated was Kelvin Sampson's coaching acumen again, making sure his players in the right place at the right time. Think about this: Houston's tallest player is 6'9". Duke has 2 7-footers who are very impactful the weekend before, and that heart, that grit, and those grown men on that Houston sideline, they made a big difference in that game towards the end. They kept coming, and I think Duke felt that at some point these guys are just going to give up. It didn't happen, and when that didn't happen, Houston came in, tied the game. You can say that the Duke had that phantom call. But I'm telling you, anybody who's seen Duke play over the last 20 years knows that when you see the referees and you think of Coach K, you think Duke is going to get the benefit of the doubt. It played out the way it was. The better team won. They didn't quit. They didn't give up. And I look forward to Houston with Florida on Monday night. I think Florida wins, but I really believe if Houston can out physical Florida, you're probably talking about a game that's in the last 2 or 3 minutes as well, just like yesterday's games were as well. Also, that's my take on the Final Four piece. But again, I think Florida takes it home Monday night, something like 74-68, something like that.
Oh, Ramon,
It's
you
my
go
turn.
ahead. Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay,
You go
yeah.
ahead.
Just making sure. I watched the Auburn Florida game with a side eye. Didn't care who won. I don't like the SEC. I'm on record. I don't like them and nothing. So I wish both of them would have lost by a chance somehow. Uh, but the better team won in that game. You know, Florida's been a lot of people's favorite throughout the second half and most of the tournament, and rightfully so. Well coached, team that can score, can defend it, etc. Right? So that's not a shocker. It's expectation, right? On the other side, the Houston Duke game, Koch said something really I thought that was important. He said the better team won. I'm gonna expound on that just a little bit. The tougher team won. Kelvin is a great coach, but his greatness isn't in X and O's. It's in toughness and culture.
20 years.
It's mental strength. And it combines with physical strength. And it's topped off with emotional strength. They're physically tough. They're mentally intact and on a string. And they don't lose their emotions. They don't lose emotional control. That's a hard team to beat. Because if they can match you, they don't have to beat you X and O's. If they can match you X and O or match you talent, they're going to beat you in toughness, whether it's physical or mental. They're going to beat you in emotional control and stability. All right? So now, if you got that little edge talent-wise, those other things that Coach Sampson provides, recruits, looks for, nurtures, and puts together and molds together are going to beat you. And that's how he beats people. I think, personally, they're going to beat Florida. It's going to be a slugfest. At the very end, they're going to be standing on top of the mountaintop, and they're going to win. And not only am I going to enjoy their victory because they ran my man out of IU when he was with my man Senderoff and Ray and all them guys. You ran him out of there. So I'm still kind of upset about that. I like that dude. But he's going to be the SEC team. And I'm going to feel good because at that point, the SEC didn't win a championship in football, basketball, hockey, women's soccer, men's soccer, nor women's volleyball. So now if we can get UConn to beat South Carolina, I may treat me to a dinner, an SEC dinner.
Oh my. Okay. All right. Well, I can't wait. I can't wait when we get to college football because it's gonna be a bloodbath between Ramon and Cotto over here. It's gonna be a bloodbath when we get to college football. That's gonna be fun. The one thing I do want to talk about, like I said, I didn't get to watch Auburn and Florida. I did watch some highlights, but it's hard to take away when you're just watching highlights. I did watch all of Houston and Duke. I got home, I think, with, right after the first half started. I probably was like maybe 5 minutes out of, missed 5 minutes of the first half. But I want to go to the ending of that game, right, between Duke and Houston. And I think the big thing, and we kind of talked about it last night in the group chat. Duke was up by 7 with 1:27 left. And I think you made a good point. I think coaching won at the end of that game. Coaching was the reason Houston came out on top. I want to talk about the shot by Cooper Flagg, though, because there's been a lot of talk about that. Was it a bad shot? Was it better defense? What? And when Cooper Flagg was asked at the press conference, and he put it as simple as he could, he said it was the play that was drawn up. And he said, I got the ball. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he went up, rose up for the shot, and he said just wasn't enough. What were your thoughts on that final shot? Was it, because I said it last night when I was watching it with my brother. I said, I don't think it was a bad shot. I think it was just good defense. It was some really good defense by who, I don't remember the player's name there, but it was good defense. I think Flagg had a good look. It just, not enough power, not enough mustard on the hot dog, however you want to phrase it.
For me, I know we do a lot of, talking head stuff, and, there's a lot of conversation. He missed the shot, man.
Yeah,
that's all.
I'm giving 20 seconds. He missed the shot. He
missed a good shot. He missed a good look.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Was it a bad look? What are your guys' thoughts on it? I was just,
Good
He's
luck.
12 feet from the basket. He's Cooper
And
Flag.
Yeah.
oh
yeah.
boy, he didn't affect his shot.
Right. Yeah, he was above. If you look at that shot, he was probably 6 to 8 inches
Okay.
above his hand. He just missed a shot.
Yeah.
That's it.
But, and I'm gonna say this on podcast.
Uh-oh.
I said it on our text, y'all.
Okay.
I think Cooper Flag is a great player. I don't think he's him. I don't think he's the guy that in the last seconds of the game you get a ball to and he's gonna go get you a victory. There's very few of those type of kids or men, and I don't think he's one. I think he's gonna be the ultimate number 2 player if he gets with a dominant number 1 in the league. But I don't think he's the one that we're gonna be talking about. Man, he made 9 buzzer beaters and blah blah blah, and in the last 40 seconds he scored 18 points. And I don't think he's that kid.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've seen him play a lot more than I anticipate seeing him play this year. I'm very impressed with him. Kid should be a senior in high school this year. I think he's going to grow. He's going to develop. I think he's about 6'9", 215 right now. He's going to grow into that. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. I'm not saying generational Michael Jordan, no. But I think he's going to be a player that you hear his name year in, year out for a guy from one of the top end players. I believe that. But we'll see what happens and how he develops. And also where he lands is going to be a big part of what happens as well. So that's my 2 cents on him.
He's going to be one of those guys that we be like, he's in the top 100 in NBA history, but he ain't going to be the top 1, 10, 15, 20.
Okay.
And I think the best, I'm curious to see where Cooper goes. And I think, whoever gets the number 1 pick, it's not going to be a matter of, position need at that point. You're going to take him because that's the best player on the board. And even then, if you don't get the first pick, there's still 2 really good players. Well, there's still plenty of good players on this board. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I watched a couple of Rutgers games this year. I think they're going to be pretty good. Am I saying they're going to be all-stars? We'll have to see. I think another one that I'm impressed with is VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor. I really like Edgecombe. If it were my decision, I could see him going 2nd overall. I could even see him going 3rd overall in this draft as well. But I think for Flag, I don't think he fails on his own, right? I think it'll definitely come down to where he lands. And we kind of talked about it last week. I think Brooklyn would mess it up. I think Washington would mess it up as well. So I'm very curious to see where he goes. But I think the question because I was talking to my brother and then my stepbrother about it, and they both asked me, do you think he enters the draft this year? Because Cooper said at some point through the season, he was like, I like it here. He's like, I may stay another year. Now, obviously, we've heard people say that before and then they enter. Does he stay another year or does he wait? And I said this last night.
He's leaving.
But I said this last night. Does he wait till the lottery and then see? Or is he...
Listen, slice it how you want. He's going to be an NBA player come November of 2025. Okay. Slice it how you want. He's going to the league. I mean, that's all. That's what I've got on the league. I don't even think there's any question.
I mean, yeah, it's a question for me. I think he should go to the league, but if I'm his daddy and Washington got the first pick, man,
yeah,
we'll go work at Walmart for a year or something.
That's what I'm kind of feeling too. I'm like, if I'm Cooper Flag and I'm sitting at home and I'm watching this lottery and it's down to Washington and Brooklyn, I mean, obviously he's gonna go to Brooklyn because it's Brooklyn, New York, obviously. But like, if it goes to Washington with that first pick, you're telling me you're not gonna like think about maybe?
No, I'm not saying he's not thinking. What I'm saying is he's going to the draft. Now, could there be something done? Could he pull a Eli Manning? He absolutely could, right?
Yeah. Well, he could do what Alex Sarr did last year and say, I don't want to be the number 1 pick.
Well, or pull an Eli Manning and say, let's figure something out. But what I'm saying to you is in November of 2025, he will be wearing an NBA uniform.
Okay. Well, okay, so answer this. If Washington gets the first pick, do you think he goes to Washington? Or do you think what do you think he does? Because I think me and Ramon are kind of on the same wavelength there. I don't think he's going
to. Me personally, I wouldn't want to. but if you don't have any leverage, and if the team chooses to not play nice with whoever you're interested in, and giving up enough players, you're going to go to Washington.
Man, you could melt and pour me into Washington.
Yeah,
Man,
I agree.
Well, I look forward to our conversations in July after the draft, right? Because I fully believe
I believe that he may go to Washington. I'm just saying, if it was me and my son, man, we would do everything we could. Hey, man, going back.
And I believe that. And I believe that. That's what I'm saying. He could pull an Eli Manning. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if the resources aren't there and he doesn't have an opportunity to go elsewhere, he's going to sign his 4-year deal with a player option, with a team option year 5, and that's where he is at that time. So think about this, because he just turned 18, he would be 23 years old when his contract ended, his rookie deal ended. He'd be 23 years old.
We'll speak. Oh, go ahead.
5 years in. So again, I think wherever he goes, I think he goes to NBA, and I think whoever is number 1 is going to pick him, unless there's a mega trade.
Well, speaking of pulling an Eli Manning, let's talk about Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes for a little bit. I've got a report I'm going to read from Jordan Schultz, but Cott, you said you wanted to have the floor to start this off.
I was very impressed from the Jim Short Olympics, right? Is what I like to call the combine and these private workouts. Controlled environment. Everybody's under a roof. There's no wind. There's no rain. There's no real pressure, right? So based off of the workout piece that you've seen from he and Ward and everyone else, he looked great. He looked great in shorts. He looked happy. He looked confident, right? That doesn't always equate to winning in the NFL. I still say he's going to go, in my opinion, he's going to go to the Giants, in my belief. I believe that. He's going to go to the Giants, even though they've got 2 veteran guys that they just signed. I think he's going to go to the Giants. So therefore, there's no pressure on him to start off the season as the starter, right? And I think he's going to grow into that opportunity. I think he's going to be a New York Giant. Does that mean he's the best fit for him? Not necessarily. But I think in this case, in being picked by the Giants, there are no absolute responsibilities he'll have in year 1, because you got a prior Super Bowl winner and a prior number 1 pick in an NFL draft. So I believe he goes to the Giants, and it shakes out from there. I do think, and by the way, I do think Ward goes number 1.
Well, I have to stay delusional. The Cowboys are going to trade Dak to Cleveland. We're going to jump ahead of New York, and we're going to take Shedeur, and we can completely restart. But that's just being me. That's me being delusional. I'm
very hopeful.
Yeah, very hopeful. I mean, I've seen some rumors, but hopefully we're still a couple weeks out from April 24th or whatever April 24th. So I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed on that. But speaking of Shedeur, Jordan Schultz, he asked the top level executive who was at Colorado's pro day to describe what he saw, regarding Shedeur Sanders. This is what that executive had to say. I just think he throws a really catchable ball. Accuracy is one thing, but catchability is another. Shedeur's got both. And watching him live today, there was more power, more velocity than I expected. He's definitely a pocket guy, but athletic enough to buy time and make plays. His offensive line was always an issue in college, but turnovers never were. That's from a top level executive who was at Colorado's pro day. That comes from Jordan Schultz. So,
but who's nameless? Who's nameless? Who's also nameless? Nameless.
Yeah, who's also nameless. Yeah.
And so when I see these reports, this is just from my perspective. I take them, say they're a piece of paper, I crumble them up and throw them in the trash.
Okay.
Put your name behind it, right? Put your name behind it, and let's go from there. But from my perspective, again, I think he's the Giants pick. I think he's got some good things about him. I think he's got a lot to work on. I think he's going to go to the Giants, and I think there's going to be no pressure on him. But when listening to these reports, I put zero stock into these anonymous reports.
Ramon, I'm assuming you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think Coach Sanders controls the media. He's got a lot of people scared to say anything bad about him because he will go after them in his own special way. So we see the great videos of Shador throwing the ball and stuff like that, and see these great stats that they said that he completed 63 out of 67 passes or something like that, or something crazy like that, and they had 3 drops. But you actually also have people who reported that there were several wobbly throws in the beginning on short routes. And his arm strength was described again anonymously by several people of being good but not great. That there may be some concern against playing in wintry conditions for him because of the strength of his arm and things of that nature. Here's my thing with Shador. I think he's a hard person. He's a hard person to figure out who he really is, just from a football standpoint. You had a lot of off-script great plays by him and Hunter, and those things don't really pan out well or transfer well over into the NFL. Like, yeah, they have for the guy up in Kansas City, but they haven't for so many other people. He throws a lot of screens and check downs, but he does throw some good deep balls to his receivers. So it's kind of like hard to look at, figure out what he truly is. My concern may be opposite of all of that. If he goes to the Giants, I just don't see that kid and his family, namely his dad, being able to sit behind somebody for a year, especially if that person's having an average year. I think that his dad will be in the media causing some issues, and that may cause some issues in that locker room. But I can't see Shador. Shador to me, just from what we see, just from the talk, we talked about, you'll be a fool not to draft me. I've turned around teams wherever I've gone, blah, blah, blah. I don't see him as a kid or a young man who's willing to sit behind somebody for a year or 2 years, something like that. So that's my issue.
I think you're on to something there, right? But humility, when you get in that locker room around men, not boys, and not something that's controlled by your head coach, and in this case your dad, I think he's going to be looked at it in a different light, because it's not going to be his comfort zone. It's going to be someone who has if it's the Giants, someone with a Super Bowl ring, and someone who was the first pick. 2 things that you don't have right now. You'll never be the number 1 pick, and you're not even close to a Super Bowl championship, right? So I think him sitting by, again, just learning the ins and outs of being an NFL player, not just from a quarterback perspective, the NFL walk, right? The day-to-day NFL walk. I think that's, for me, if I'm Deion Sanders and I'm looking at my son, I want him to go to the Giants, because there's no pressure on him right now. But I tell you what, just like Eli Manning, you win the Super Bowl, you'll never have to buy a meal or a drink again in the city of New York ever again in his life. And that Eli Manning.
I 100% agree with you, man. I just don't think his daddy's that type of person. I think that they can humble him in New York, and his daddy be like, man, you should be starting. And he ain't going to believe nobody but his daddy, because he's heard his daddy's voice for the last 22, 23 years. So if his daddy say he should start, I don't care what the president, the owner, the GM, the head coach.
Better go to Cleveland then. Well,
my daddy said,
go to Cleveland then.
I think I think that there's a chance, and I don't want to say that he may fall deeper into the draft, And here's the scary thing about all of this, because I want to see everybody succeed, especially young black men. All right, so let's get that out there. But if he jumps in that pool as a starter immediately and does not have success, and he hears the chatter,
that's my point.
How can he recover? Because I don't know if he built like that.
That's my point. That's why he's got to sit his first year, in my opinion. He's got to sit there and absorb. Because if he goes into, your point, if he pulls an Anthony Richardson, if he pulls the kid that played at Kentucky that's in Tennessee right now.
Will Levis.
Yeah, Will Levis. If he pulls that, it's done. There's no comeback. Think about this. Houston will have had 3 quarterbacks picked in the last 4 years in the first round. That are first round players, right? They had Malik, who they thought was going to be a first, but he slipped to the 3rd round. Then you got Will Levis. You got him at the top of the 2nd round. Then you're going to go get Ward in the 1st round, right? So from my take is, you got it matters. It matters so much where you go and if you're thrust into playing. And if you got that, look at the confidence that Will Levis has, right? If you remember the combine when Will Levis was here in Indy, and they said, "Well, why are you throwing?" He says, "I want to show off my cannon." He said, "I want to show off my cannon." You can go back and look. I want to show off my cannon. But his problem is this: he has a cannon for an arm, but he's got mashed potatoes for brain. He makes every dumb play he can make, and it doesn't exude for him, right? He'll be out of the league as a starter in 2 years, and he'll be probably a career backup, right? That's what Will Levis is going to be, because all he talked about was his cannon. That's great, you got a cannon, but it's so much more to that. Where's your acumen? And that guy's made bonehead play after bonehead play because of confidence, borderline arrogance. I don't want that to happen to Sanders. That's why I say you grab a clipboard, you get your baseball hat on, and you wear it for the year, no matter what. He's got, in my view, his best opportunity for success: baseball hat, clipboard for the entire season.
Yep.
All right. So I was trying to find the clip of where we all decided Shedeur was going to go last week. I can't seem to find it, but my opinion has changed a little bit. So I don't remember what I said last week, but I think I think Shedeur's going to fall. I don't see New York taking him. I think Cleveland's his best bet, but I think Cleveland may take Travis Hunter. And if Travis Hunter doesn't get picked there, I could see him going to New England. And then, Cod, I think you said you think Travis is going to go to Jacksonville last week on the show. But I think for me, I think Shedeur is going to drop because I don't think New York's going to take another quarterback when they've already got two veterans. In my mind, it doesn't make any sense to sign Russell and then sign Jameis and then draft a rookie, and then you're playing this game of musical chairs all season long. I don't see that happening. Cleveland, once again, I think they've got to worry about, I don't know if they're going to want to add a quarterback salary to their roster when they've given Deshaun all this money, they've given Garrett all this money. I think they've got to figure out some other things before they bring in a quarterback salary that you're going to have to pay a decent amount to, because he's going to be a first round, second overall pick. So I think Cleveland may go somewhere else. And then I think, and you said it last week when I was watching the clip, I don't think Vegas is going to take him either, because you just paid Sam Darnold all that money. I don't think Vegas is going to take him either. So I think if I'm looking at these other teams, I think Ramon said it last week, New York may be his best bet once we get out of the top five when we come draft night.
What Geno's in Vegas, right? So Geno, they just signed to a 2-year extension. That 2-year, $75
million. Sam Darnold went to
Seattle.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I messed that up.
They've got the kid from Michigan, that's in the wings in Minnesota, right? The kid from Michigan. Darnold's in Seattle now. So the reason why I say that is because Geno's got a 2-year deal, right? And I don't know that the Raiders need to look at a quarterback at this point. They've got some other holes to fill. Then you look at Cleveland. They've got plenty of holes to fill as well. But there is a caveat to the Deshaun Watson deal. There's got reports that there's an insurance policy that may be able to kick in to finish off his last year, which would free up cap money for Cleveland if, in fact, he is not able to play. Because you remember, he just tore his Achilles, right? So more than likely, he won't be able to play this upcoming season. And if they can enact that insurance policy plan, they can come out of under that contract, have the insurance potentially pay it, and then still be in a position they can pay a couple of players. It hasn't been finalized yet, but that's the conversation with regard. That's why Jimmy Haslam came out and said, "Hey, this is on me. I swung for the fences I missed," because he knew there were some things in the works with regard to that contract.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Cleveland does. I think this draft is out of, the last 2 years of the draft have been really like quarterback talk, right? Because who's going to take who, what quarterback's going where. This draft is so different because, we're still talking about the quarterbacks, but then you have everybody else and you kind of don't know what they're going to do, because Travis Hunter's in there, and then, you've got the wide receiver from Arizona. And the best thing about this draft this year is almost in every position, it's pretty deep. It's pretty loaded, other than quarterback. Quarterback, it's a lot of experiments. Quinn Ewers is an experiment. Milrose an experiment. But I think the best part is this isn't a quarterback-heavy year, right? Not a lot of teams need a quarterback. They may want one to maybe try out, but they don't need a quarterback. The teams that need a quarterback, it's really only 2 or 3 this year if we want to be technical, right? Because you just said Vegas doesn't need to look. It really does come down to Cleveland and Tennessee, and then maybe like New Orleans, right? Because of Derek Carr.
Don't forget Pittsburgh still had to sign another quarterback.
And that's a good point.
So the Jets just got my man from Pittsburgh who played Ohio State, your boy, exactly. So there may not be immediate needs this year right now, but there are some teams that still got some holes to fill, and I think Pittsburgh is going to be a player in this upcoming draft from a quarterback perspective somehow, some way. They've got to be, because their only active player they've got right now is the kid from Oklahoma State.
I don't know. Randolph. I think it's Rudolph. Mason Rudolph. Yeah. So if Pittsburgh doesn't move up, we can just go into that. If Pittsburgh does not move up, they've got the 21st pick. I don't think they take any of the quarterbacks. Let's say Ward and Shedeur go off the board, you're not going to take, I think the next guy on the board is Milroe. I don't remember for sure. Dart. Is Dart even, I don't think Dart would go 21st. So when you're Pittsburgh, who would you take if it comes down to, if it comes down to that scenario, say Rodgers retires, what do you do when you're Pittsburgh if you choose not to move up to get one of those two?
I think Jackson Dart is better than Shedeur, so.
Yeah. If anything, Pittsburgh may trade down, right? If they feel like they can get Jackson Dart, because I know we talked about this last week. If they feel like they can get Jackson Dart, maybe in the first 10 picks of the second round, it wouldn't surprise me if they trade out of that 21st pick and see if they can kind of maybe pile up a couple of different things.
Yeah, I know you guys both really like Dart. I probably should watch some more film on Dart there. I watched a little bit. I think he's okay, but I probably need to watch a little more on Dart. We've got 4 minutes left here in this little segment remaining. So final thoughts before we move into the wraparound segment. If there's any team you want to mention on who they take, has your opinion changed on who someone's going to take from last week? Final thoughts real quick.
Real quick on mine. What do the Colts do? Okay. You bring in a guy who we think is going to, Daniel Jones, and you think is going to start next year. What do you do with AR-15? And then they've got depth issues as well. So be interesting to see what the hometown Colts do this year.
Ramon.
I watched Shiloh Sanders 40-yard dash a couple times.
Your mic's squealing a little bit.
Am I squealing? Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, it's squealing a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Any better?
It's still squealing.
Go ahead and give it a shot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Check it out. I watched Shiloh's 40-yard dash time. Man, that's the slowest 4.52, 4.53 I've ever seen in my life. I almost pulled out my stopwatch and clocked it on myself.
So you saying he's a 4.7 guy?
Man, tell me y'all didn't look at that 4.52 and like, we coming, but when?
I think he's a day 3 guy.
Man, if it wasn't for his daddy, he'll be we want you to come to camp, free agent guy.
Well, I'm gonna stay on what I've been saying. I hope we trade Dak to Cleveland. I hope we trade Dak to Pittsburgh. I hope we trade Dak somewhere. And I want a clean slate. I want a clean slate. I want to start over. We already drafted a bum. We already signed a bum of a head coach. So let's just throw the season in the trash completely. Let's get rid of Dak. Let's let Schottenheimer stink up the joint for this year, and then we'll fire him one and done. And then we'll sign. I don't even know who at that point. We'll just do some sexy hire. We'll probably take Rex Ryan off of Get Up and continue to sit in mediocrity and waste CeeDee Lamb's career, and then we're gonna trade him to Denver or something. So I gotta give my Lakers credit. I know you don't like them anymore, Ramon, but they're the only thing that's kept me happy in the last decade or so. So I can't, because Dallas loves to make me mad. So I can't hate too much on LA when they're the only thing that brings me happiness in sports most of the time. So
your standards are low, my friend. Your standards are low.
Hey, be happy now because you're gonna be sad come end of May. So we'll leave it.